My dad played guitar when I was growing up. He had a really cool old Silvertone that he plugged into this old Silvertone amp, and he was like a surf guitar god. He quit all that to go become a mechanical engineer so that he could support a family. Well, I started playing early on. I actually had to sneak over to a friend's house to play the electric guitar. My first guitar was a cheap, no-name Gibson Les Paul knockoff because I wanted to be both the Slash. I wanted to be both Slash and Jimmy Page, and also Robert Plant and Axl Rose. And my second guitar, a Squire 2 white Stratocaster, which to this day I own and is one of my favorite guitars. It had like the 4 position, all the Stevie Ray and Hendrix stuff that I've been trying to learn, just all of a sudden those sounds were there. So I annoyed everyone to death. Because I had a twin reverb. There's no quiet setting on a twin reverb. So I built my first guitar. I was horsing around with a friend's little brother, and he decided to pick me up from behind, and I fell back on top of him, and I stuck my arm out to catch myself, and I broke this. Since I couldn't play guitar, I decided to build a guitar. So I built my #1 black Stratocaster. Then I built a Telecaster a couple years later. I actually built 2 of them. Those were the #2 and #3 guitars I ever built. But there was some concepts that made sense to me, like really thin finish. I just shot my own nitro finishes. Spent years hunting down what neck profiles and shapes that I liked. Gold top, PV of all things, Wolfgang, that had this neck profile that was just, and it had no finish on it, and it was literally perfect. It had 1 P90 in it, and it was just a perfect guitar. That neck feels like home. It gives anybody the credibility to do anything. Am I good at what I do? I don't know that I'm good at what I do. For years, tried to make perfect things and was constantly frustrated. That's still my goal, but I have to bypass that part of my brain and say, finish things and make it as good as you can. I'm a little bit obsessive and perfectionistic. I'm a lot obsessive and a lot perfectionist. When I'm building a guitar, when I'm comfortable with that guitar is when I sit down and play it and forget that I'm playing that guitar and music starts to happen. That tells me that I've built a guitar that is worth going into the hands of a friend, client, customer, musician, whoever it's going to.
If you could build anything, what would you build?
I would build a 1967 fastback Mustang on a Jaguar frame and just have the road beast of all time. So my dad was a mechanical engineer, and so growing up I learned to build cars. So my hobby time I was 12 on was rebuilding motorcycles, and then I started rebuilding cars, and then I started restoring Mustangs. So from like 13 to 18 I did 12 64 to 68 Mustangs. Nuts to leather. Electronics was the one thing I never wanted. The last Mustang I ever did was a 67 convertible, and I had to replace the wiring harness, so I ended up replacing all the electronics in that, and that kind of got me over my anxiety about electronics. Yeah, I had a reissue Bassman that died mid-recording, and it cost me like $400 to get it fixed. A friend of mine was like, you should just start working on old Fenders. And then at some point, built myself an amp for my band because I was trying to get something that would work in a live situation and not be too loud. And it just started out as a JTM 45 and went every which way from there. Adam now owns that amp. Money is all it took to pry it from my hands.